Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me today is a couple of brothers who I've known for some time now. These are brothers who are men of God, men of integrity, great character. They are doing some great works in the community, putting their stamp on this world, letting God use them in the way that He created them to serve at the highest level of capacities to empower, to encourage, to uplift. And they've taken some time out of their busy schedules to join in with us today to just share a little bit about their journey in hopes that you will be inspired and you will be encouraged by what they have to share. So without any further delay, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Chris Davis and Mr. Lamont Durr. Welcome, brothers, to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having me, man.
Absolutely.
Good to be here.
Absolutely. Again, I know you brothers from different spaces and places. Of course, Lamont, I had a pleasure of being a guest on your podcast. You were one of the very first podcasts I ever had a chance to be on. And, I'll never forget you extending that opportunity to me. We've never met in person, face to face, but we've, of course, chit chat across social media. And, of course, we had a wonderful time on your show. Appreciate the good work that you're doing. And, of course, I'm going to give you a chance to talk about that. And, of course, my brother Chris, we've known each other for several years as well, back in the day, across from coming from Indiana and, of course, now in Texas. So we've kind of crossed state lines and we're still connected. So, you brothers are my brothers. We may be brothers from another mother, but we brothers nevertheless. And we, of course, are men of God coming together. So it's always a good opportunity to do things like this. So with that said, before we jump into the show, I do want to give each of you an opportunity to just share a little bit about yourselves with the audience. So I'll start with you, Lamont. Tell the audience a little bit about what you do, who you are, just a little something. Give them a taste about who Lamont is.
I'm just a vessel. I ain't even gonna hold you up, but God uses me in multiple ways. Originally from Cleveland, Ohio, so we're gonna get into my story a little bit later. But a lot of the things that God has me doing surrounds finances, bringing people out of their poverty state, prophetically speaking into their lives, so that they can be able to understand that if they seek God, everything else will be added unto them, instead of just trying to toil for that everyday life, that information that we be trying to obtain, the wealth we be trying to obtain, the love we be trying to obtain from other people. That we understand that we seek God first, all the things in life will be added unto us. So I just allow God to use me in whatever way He uses me, and I appreciate you for bringing me on this podcast.
Absolutely. If you check out my brother's shirt, he got "God is my source." That's his podcast, and like I said, he'll talk to you a little bit about that later on in the show. I love that topic. That thing of your show, man. Appreciate that. And my brother Chris, same thing. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself, man.
All right, so I'm gonna try to keep this as short as I possibly can, right?
Are you good? You good?
So, I love Jesus, man. That's really, kind of the core of who I am, and everything else is kind of an offshoot, kind of a ripple effect from that. Known Joseph for a bunch of years, man. As a matter of fact, we met. You were in my prayer group at Eastern Star Church years and years and years ago, man. A few grades ago.
Yeah.
And so, but in terms of just who I am, man, I'm a father, I'm a husband. Again, I've been in ministry for over 20 years, so my heartbeat is serving people. I mean, I've done a lot of different kinds of things. I was an elementary school teacher, coach, former ball player, and a lot of those experiences really kind of just manifested themselves in terms of just the core of my purpose, being serving people, right? And so, a lot of what I do now, along with ministry, is just pour into people, and specifically men, and young men. And we spend a lot of time just kind of walking with them through their lives from a mental health standpoint, and then a connection to resources, mentoring, coaching, counseling, and the like. And so a lot of what we do, not only just families in general, but I focus a lot these days on men. And so, just building people, right? So when it comes to ministry, I have lots and lots of ministry experience, which again was just an opportunity for me to use my gifts, talents, and abilities to grow people. So whether it's inside the church or outside the church, at the end of the day, it's about loving people the way that God would call us to.
Awesome, brother. And again, you can't say enough about the need to pour into men. That's nothing against the ladies. We need to pour into the ladies as well. But when men take the stand of understanding, the importance of pouring into one another and brotherhood and being godly men and in character and integrity and in their walk and in their service. That's a wonderful thing, and that's why having you two brothers on and having you two brothers on together reinforces what that's all about and what it looks like. So again, I appreciate you sharing that about yourselves. And again, we just scratching the surface. We just getting ready to dig into this thing. So if you would, I'm gonna jump back to you, Lamont. Tell us a little bit about what was it like for you growing up back in Cleveland. Any fond memories that you have, as well as if there's any specific challenges that you recall having to deal with. Please share that with us as well. What that journey was like growing up.
We was broke. I tell you that we was broke. I was blessed though that I was raised in the family that I was raised in because everything was always God first. You feel me? So like we growing up, I was born 3 months premature, so the devil always tried to like stop me from whatever I was doing. God raised me up. My father actually lives with me now, but he was nowhere to be found at the beginning of my life. So my mother, she did her best to raise me and my two brothers. Raised in the church, grew up playing football, always was a bright mind, but never really truly understood my purpose. So growing up in Cleveland, if you understand, I know y'all said y'all spent some time in the Midwest. I know that you are from Chicago. It's kind of a rough place. It's like the armpit of America, if you want to say it like that, because there's no real opportunities. Like the only opportunities people really receive is if they make it out in some type of entertainment, sports fashion. And a lot of people from here come up playing different sports or playing football that actually make it out and do something that is powerful to everybody else, per se. And so I grew up playing football, went to college playing football, and then I was able to start to understand what I had in here. So football got taken away from me because I started messing up my Achilles a lot. And at that point in time, like I said, a lot of my friends, they either on their way to the NFL in high school, about to go to the NFL, or they working to try to get into the NFL. So I decided that I wanted to be a sports agent. So I'm like, all right, I know everybody, I know where to go. Everybody call me when it's time to hang out. Started pursuing a lifestyle that God was not in at all. And I ended up pledging in a fraternity, ended up moving down to Miami, and then the rest was like kind of like history. So then once God got a hold of me, it took it took a lot to really get me to submit because my life wasn't terrible after I made it out of Cleveland. My life was actually pretty dope when you come to a worldly standpoint, but I was very empty, very lost, didn't know my purpose, didn't know what was next, trying to identify like how was I going to do what I knew I could do, or how was I going to do what I knew that other people saw in me, or the different things I would hear, but I never brought that back to God. I never was like, all right, what do God want me to do? Like, what do I want to do? I always knew that the ministry calling was on my life, but I never wanted to pursue it because I understood how serious it was. I understood that, like, all right, if I'm gonna do this God thing, if I'm gonna preach, if I'm gonna do this, then everything else got to stop. I don't know if I'm ready to stop yet. So it just kept on happening until God finally arrested me. And it just was like it was a kind of awakening moment, and started to pursue God and started to pursue holiness totally. And it started to bring back everything back to my memory. Everybody telling me about how I was young, understood the Bible as a young age. We ended up playing football, but football never was really my strength. I was good at it, but I was good at music. I was good at speaking. I was good at leading people. And I never understood that the prophetic was on my life until God put me under a prophet. And then everything that I started identifying with these different people with, God started showing me like, I've created you to assist my people out of their position in life. you understand this, but what you were trying to do was you were trying to help them get out of their position, but you was leading them to damnation. So I had to come get you and show you, like, all right, look, this is what you're supposed to be doing. So for the past few years, I just been learning how to submit my life to God, learning how to understand what He wants from me, and trusting Him with all my heart, not lean to my own understanding. Because if I acknowledge Him, He gonna direct my path. It might not necessarily be the financial gain that everybody thinks they want, but we understand that the blessing of the Lord make us rich and add no sorrow. It's funny that we're on the Blessing of the Street podcast, but once we truly understand that, we seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, all the things will be added unto us. We won't get into a position where we trying to fight and chase everything because we regret our past. I remember nights, months, no gas, no electricity. We going to my aunt house. So those different things will push you to try to pursue what you think you want out of life. You want to make it. You want to get to where you think you're supposed to be, so you don't feel that pain, you don't feel that sorrow. But the problem at hand is that 37 tells us that don't fret the sight of evildoers, because just as the grass withers, they will wither too. So, like, when you're trying to seek these lifestyles that don't honor God, it has to fall. We all know different people, celebrities, heavy people who is rich. They lose it in an instant. You never even know what's about to happen. They go crazy. It seems like something happened randomly, but it's because they didn't get it through God. So if you don't get it through God, you have to lose it. And so I just been going through life understanding that if I don't put God first, then nothing else really exists.
Man, you just said a word right there. You just said a few words, as a matter of fact. And if you don't mind sharing, man, would you please tell the audience how old you are?
Oh, I'm 32.
This is a 32-year-old brother speaking like this.
Wow.
You know, understanding, what it takes to transform himself into living a life that is pleasing to God. And I love the way that you pointed out how, you went through things like no electricity, no gas, things like that. And you are exactly right. We go through experiences like that. And in our mindset, we think, well, when I grow up, I want to get away from that stuff. Like as if, this is the bad life and I want to experience the good life. And we start pursuing the stuff, the junk and the things. And there's nothing wrong with pursuing some of that stuff. But again, as you stated, if we're doing it without God included in the process, then at some point, even if we get it, we're not going to be able to hold on to that. At some point, we're going to lose that, and we're going to get pulled back in. And your word, I think, was an appropriate word. You get arrested by God, and then He says, "Okay, this is what I desire for you to do. This is why I created you. This is why I set you up like I did. This is why you went through the lights being off and the gas being off. It wasn't so that you could go get away from this and chase the, as you said, the damnations, the things that don't matter, things of that nature. That's not what it's about. It's about understanding that, hey, this is a part of the journey to get to the end game of what I ultimately want to see you do, the works that I want to see you perform. So don't quit looking at it as something to get away from. Look at it as something to build and grow on. And then just you sharing some of the things about your experiences, playing ball and other things, man. It's funny, like when I'm coming up with shows, I try to come up with titles for our show. I don't know if you paid attention. Like our title is for our show is From Drifting Off Course to Finding My Source. You already spoke to that. And the fact that the two of you are together on this show, because you haven't even heard Chris's story yet. The parallels already, some of the stuff that you all are going to speak to is just, I can't call it luck. I can't call it, by chance. This is God aligned for the two of you to be on to say the things that you're going to say tonight. So that's a powerful story that you shared, my brother Lamont, and I appreciate your transparency in doing that. And see, it's just. It needed to be told, and it needed to be told the way you told it. I thank you for that, man. I thank you. Same question to you, Chris. Tell us what it was like for you growing up, fond memories that you have, as well as any, if there's any challenges that come to mind that you can think of that you had to deal with in that growing up process. Please share us what that journey was like for you.
Yeah, man. It was. I'll say it like this, man. I could probably write about 3 different books on my childhood. So You know, I'll say it like this. I'll start. So, mom and dad divorced when I was really young. My mother was a police officer, and my father was military. So, most of my childhood, I can recall just those two dynamics. Now, um, early on, my parents divorced. Man, my father went in the military, and was shipped off to Panama. So he's literally at the bottom of South America, right? And so most of my young childhood and teenage years I spent without my dad, consistently there. And so I would just say, that during that time there were a lot of different things that I was learning. Grew up in church. All I can remember as a young boy was being in church for the most part, right? And then as a mother, with my mother being a police officer, a lot of time that we spent was with we had like a babysitter, was kind of like a second mom, who was very, 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 very much a lover of God and a servant of God. And so that's all we knew. That was what flavored our younger years. I mean, all I can remember is going to church. We went to church a lot. These were those days where they say, you got the drug problem, you got drugged to church all the time. So I remember Sundays, morning service, afternoon service, and evening service. And I was like, okay, as I got older, it was like, okay, Lord, I must have needed a whole lot of Jesus to get ready for what was coming. But a lot of those early years, right? And so, remember, being a son of a police officer. So that was a unique experience being on the other side of law enforcement, right? So a lot of my mother's friends were law enforcement, and so that's all we knew. We knew a lot of those folks. And then but as a young boy, I recall probably being around like 2 or 3 and really feeling this tug to help people. I remember my mother asking me a question. I remember I had to be about 2 or 3 years old, and I remember her asking me, well, maybe about 3 or 4, asking me what I wanted to be, what I wanted to do with my life. It's pretty heavy question for a young child, but we had those deep conversations, man. And so I remember her asking me that question. I told her I just want to help people. And I remember being really, really young, but being deeply emotionally impacted by people who had needs, right? I recall like just being in tears when I would see handicapped folks or homeless people or people who had any kind of need. I remember my heart would just break for them as a young boy.
Mhm.
And a lot of that, I feel like as I've gotten older, I better understand that was God pricking my heart and preparing me for what He wanted me to do as I got older. But I always had this draw to just help, right? And so as I got older, I began to just really ask my mom, more and more questions about about God and what are the things that we're supposed to be doing. And she was telling me that the reality is the things that you're drawn to, the things you just feel this natural tug for, is usually aligned with your purpose, right? So she kind of planted that seed to be seeking, like, what is that? What am I supposed to be doing in my life? I just know I want to help people. I have no idea exactly what that looks like. I just know I want to do it,
Mhm.
right? And so of course, like most boys, we like my guy here, man. I play ball. When I was younger, I remember fighting a lot, not understanding why I was so angry. I fought a lot, a whole lot. I remember like really between the first through like 8th grade, I just fought, 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 fought. It wasn't until my mother helped me to understand that a lot of my emotion was based on my dad's absence. And so a lot of that really kind of shaped again some of the dynamics of what the course that my life took, right? So as a football player, football became my therapy, right? And so and wrestling, right? I love sports, period, but football and wrestling were the most physically violent sports that you could play legally. so I excelled in football because I got to take out my anger on folks, and so the more aggressive that I was, the more people cheered, right? And so it was kind of my outlet. Um, and so, a lot of that time during those really angry years was spent pouring into sports, as a way to kind of deal with the absence of my dad, because there was this lurking question that was just kind of nagging and gnawing at me. And that question was, who am I? What am I supposed to be doing? And then what is a man? What do men do? Of course, you see media, and the like, giving you all these different examples, but it just didn't feel like it was clarity for me. And so as I continued to grow older, my mother eventually transitioned off of out of law enforcement and start to dive more heavily into ministry. And me being the oldest son, I was kind of wanting to do exactly what I saw my mother do, and so I really started to get to a hunger and a thirst for Jesus, right? And so I would ask, man, I think I want to go to heaven. I want to go to heaven. How do I go to heaven? Right. We grew up in church, right? So, but as kids, we're playing, man. We're not really, we're getting it, but we're not consciously understanding what we're receiving. And so we're playing and stuff. So I was receiving it, but now I'm at a place where I'm conscious. Now I have a hunger for it. I want to know. And I remember that at 12 years old at a lock-in, man. I ran smack dab into Jesus, man, and prayed
Let's go.
and. And I remember praying with a guy who was at the lock in. We came. He said, "Anybody want to come forward?" It's like, how the verse of scripture says, "On the day you hear His voice, harden not your heart." And I heard it, Doc. It was just like, Here's the thing, though. I had already joined church and been baptized. I did that at 9. But when I decided to seek Jesus was at 12. Right? Not to be cool, not so I can do communion like all my friends. This was for me. This was the heart move.
Hmm.
And I remember waking up from that prayer, waking up because it was like I was asleep. I was like out of body, right? As this guy was praying, it was like something was changing in me. And as I opened my eyes, it's like everything was new. And at that point, I realized something different had happened. And my hunger and thirst for Christ just exploded. And so I really began to seek God. I remember, really digging into scripture at about like 15 or 16 years old, kind of being the oddball, at school. I was a really talented athlete. I had an opportunity to play college ball, Division I college ball at a major university and a major conference. All the things that people want, but I was seeking Jesus. It was like, yeah, everything is cool. I still love football, but it was like this Jesus. I would come home from practice and read my Bible at 15 and 16. It was just, there was this insatiable hunger and I couldn't get enough. But it was for me, it was driven by my desire to know him better. And that was really kind of where I saw a lot of what I do now in terms of the passion for Christ. It was really kind of developed at that stage. And so, like my man, I played ball, got injured, was not able to. I mean, I had to make a choice of whether or not to go to the next level, and made a choice not to. Um, was depressed for a few years because I had worked so hard to get to that point, and to just voluntarily walk away from my dream was tough. But I learned some lessons during playing college ball. We'll probably get to this a little later in terms of some of the challenging experience we had. But my oldest son, who's 26 now, was born while I was in college playing ball, and so it really kind of, again, it's now God's bringing back through some of the choices that I made, bringing back this question of what is a man, what do men do, and I needed to get answers to it. And so God blessed me with a coach who was on staff who basically discipled me. His name is Anthony Thompson. Incredible man, and taught me all. He gave me answers to all the burning questions that I had about manhood. Now, my mother was married at that time, and her late husband, they were married for about 30, almost 30 years. So he was geographically and physically present, but he was emotionally unavailable, right? And so I didn't have a source that I could kind of seek in person to ask these questions or get some answers to these questions. And so God littered my path with men who were strong, who loved Jesus, who were able to kind of give me some of that guidance. But as a young boy, it was kind of like God was putting these breadcrumbs. He was dropping these breadcrumbs in my path to through all kinds of circumstances, all kinds of experiences to find him. And eventually, when I stepped away from ball, trying to figure out who I was and what I was going to be about, because football was pretty much all my life at that point. He was really helping me to understand what my purpose was, to discover my spiritual gifts, and then really start to seek him fully.
That's awesome, brother. And again, appreciate your transparency and sharing that. And just it's just inspiring just to hear that what that journey was like and how God at a very early age, just as the same was the case with Lamont, pulled at you, tugged at you. You didn't quite understand it, but you knew there was something that you needed to grab hold to. You knew that there was something I needed to build upon. And I like how you pointed out the fact that, yeah, I got baptized at 9, but then there came a point where I embraced, officially from myself, accepting Christ into my life. Because that is one of the challenges when you get baptized early. Is the question is, is this more about my parents pushing me into this versus did I choose this? And it's not that by accident that God, like I said, tugs at your heartstrings, that he navigates you towards certain things that may not quite make sense, fully. Like, why am I drawn to this? Why is this such a big deal? Like you talked about your compassion for seeing hurting people, whether they're homeless, whether they're disabled, whether they're just going through stuff, and it was a natural draw for you. And to be young and have that draw, that's not a normal thing, So that kind of speaks to God seeing and already planting something in you that was special, that you were supposed to be different, that was supposed to set you apart in such a way to build upon, so that you can do the thing that, in response to the question that you answered with your mom, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to help people. These were the seeds. These were the breadcrumbs that you spoke about. And the same thing, like Lamont talked about, these little nuggets that happen along the way, that even though there's this dream and this vision of things over here, and it was exciting and it was fun, there was still always something that just kept drawing you back, kept pulling you in. So that's powerful. That is powerful. And I pray that my audience, listening in on this podcast will see how God works in you, how he moves. And that's why I like to talk about, in our segments where we start from the beginning, because you really can't define and understand one's journey without understanding where did this foundational basis begin. And to know that it wasn't just for the two of you. It wasn't just about, hey, I grew up poor, or I just grew up in, in this situation, that situation. You started out early with God being an instrumental piece to the puzzle, a necessary part of the puzzle. So that's good stuff. That's good stuff. So I want to build up on this a little bit more. We're going to take it a little bit deeper. So I'm going to jump back to you, Lamont. If you would, when you think about going through our journeys, going through our life challenges, we deal with a host of different adversities and, valley experiences and whatnot. But every once in a while, every now and then, we come across something that hits us a little bit different. That even though you might be really good at navigating to get out of this and that and getting over this and making it through that, sometimes we get hit with something that's like running into a brick wall, to the point where this is a little bit heavier. This is a little bit more burdensome, to the point to where you even question, even with your faith being the way that it is, you question, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I'm not seeing the pathway through. Tell us about a time when you experienced such a situation where you were faced with a moment of adversity that you didn't know you were going to make it through. It was that challenging for you. But of course, you're here today, obviously, to tell a story. Thank God for that. But if you would, please share with us a time when you experienced such a thing.
I mean, to be completely honest, those moments have happened so many times in my life. Like, I was like even thinking about it the other day. I'm like, when can I say that it was easy? It was never easy. Like I said, I was born 3 months premature. Like, my mother was like 19 years old when she had me. Only thing that she knew was to like give me to God, though. That was the only thing she knew. So like, coming up out of high school, you go to college, and I remember this might be a funny story. Uh, when I was going to college, to my first college, the craziest part is that God sent me to a Christian college. My first college, I got a scholarship
Hmm.
to play football at a Christian college. the whole nine. You can't have you had girls in your room, but you gotta have the door open, 45-degree angle. But we was a mess at that school. We was doing the most. But one time, my mother, she didn't actually have the funds that needed to pay the additional money that was not covered by my scholarship and my financial aid. And I was ducking and dodging the residence assistants and the people at the main office like kid and play. And it's funny to look back on that now because I ended up making my a financial decision to go to a HBCU based on that because I ended up coming back home the next semester since I couldn't get that money covered, and I just start. That's when I started like using my brain more. And at that time, one of my coaches, he was telling me, he was like, "You're not gonna play football." He said, "You bigger than that." And I'm like, I'm thinking in my head like, "You hating on me for real?" But he like you bigger than that. He said if you're not a multi-millionaire doing something crazy or being an innovator or being a leader over some people doing something, he said I'm gonna be disappointed in you. And I never understood that. But through that trial, that tribulation, I remember I'm talking about I'm riding a bus for like about 2 hours every single day to get to the community college because I know that I found out how to transfer and not lose credits, how to transfer and still be able to graduate on time. I identified all this stuff at like 19 years old. So I'm taking a bus like 2 hours a day in the morning. I'm getting up at like 5 o'clock in the morning at 19. I'm mad every single day because I'm like, man, I don't even know why I'm doing this. But I didn't realize that God was doing a work in me. He said, "He who had done a good work, and you shall perform it to the day of Jesus Christ." And now I'm starting to see the results of this. So I'm taking 2 hours. I'm in between my classes. I'm working out. So I remember I had got a car from the car auction one time, and I was so thirsty to get this car. I bought the car for like $350. This guy that my mother was talking to at the time, he helped me get it. And the first day I get the car, it breaks down. Like the first day I get the car, it breaks down. I've come to find out that the frame of the car is rusted and it's dropping. So the engine's dropping out of the car the first day I get the car. I literally just go get the 30-day tags. One of my friends, he was a mechanic at the time. I pull in there I'm excited, telling him like, "Oh yeah, look, I got a car, this, that, and third, boom, boom." And then this happens. Like I'm pulling out of his driveway. He like, "The engine about to fall out of your car." So I can't drive the car. Now I'm back on the bus again. I'm talking about going through trials and tribulations. And then right before, so I ended up finding HBCUs. I didn't want to go to HBCU because my mother and my father went to HBCU, and it was a bitter taste in my mouth because it was like they didn't finish, they didn't do nothing. I always hearing the stories about how Central State was. And then I ended up making a call. Defensive back coach watched my high school film instantly, and then he started watching some of the stuff that I sent him on Huddle from our spring game the previous year, and so he offered me a spot. He can offer me a scholarship because they had just got off of a not a sanction, but Central State had a scandal that happened in the late '90s, and they didn't get their football program back to like 2007, 2008. So they really couldn't offer scholarships like that. But he told me I can come, earn the spot, and whatever happens after that happens after that. And it came down between them and Bowie State. But I identified at that point in time, like my mother can't pay nothing. I really can't pay nothing. I'm over here selling weed, trying to make something happen. I'm over here doing all this different stuff that I have no business doing, trying to make something happen. Just lost, a little young dummy. And right before I choose to go to Central State because I found out how my financial aid would just cover everything, and I won't have to pay nothing out of pocket. So I'm about to go there the week. No, it was 2 weeks before I'm about to go to Central State. It was on my brother's birthday, December 23rd. Me and one of my friends, we just came from a party, and this is one of my partners that I was making money with. And so I say, don't pull in my driveway. Well, I didn't put. I was in the driver's seat. I didn't pull in the driveway because I didn't want my mother to come outside and see us smoking. Soon as we there, we just chilling, and all of a sudden we see somebody come. I lived at a dead end. We see somebody coming, and I'm like, that's the police. Doo-doo. Police come, they search us. Everything was it was kind of crazy because we know how the George Floyd situations happened. We know how all this different stuff ended up happening. At this time, I had so we didn't have that much weed. We had like about I think it may have been about an ounce maybe at that time, but we had literally just sold some stuff. It was just crazy, and I put it in my pocket like a dummy. Soon as we, as soon as police come, because I didn't want them to find it in the car. But we had a scale in the car. He had a BB gun that looked just like a gun. So they could have instantly like put us in one of those situations. They didn't find a gun. They didn't find a scale. Only person I had weed on me. They didn't take us to jail because all they had to do was write us a ticket because I guess this city of with state of Ohio just passed a law where it's not I don't know what happened, but they didn't file a criminal charge, so they didn't take us to jail. So my mother didn't know. So I'm just quiet about it the whole time. So one of my mother's friends that's in the streets, he ends up seeing me at court. That's like 2 days before I'm about to go to Central State. He see me at court and tell my mother what's going on. But it kind of was a blessing that he told my mother what was going on because I'm running out of money. I had saved out maybe, I think I saved out maybe $2,000 doing all this different stuff I was doing. I was working at Finish Line. I had just started selling stuff. I was buying stuff from the like Goodwills and stuff, and I'm reselling it, and we selling weed. So I'm just saving a little money, but I had like about $1,000, $2,000 saved. But they broke me soon as I had to go to court. So my mother found out. She called me as soon as I'm coming from court. She like, what you do? I'm like, what you mean what I do? I'm scared now because I'm like, I just came from court. She's like, what you do? They just sentenced me and everything. They didn't give me nothing. They told me I was gonna be I was gonna get the first offenders program. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm good. My mother ain't got to know what's going on. She ends up finding out everything because this guy who was in court for something else ends up telling her that I seen her son in court. So now I'm going back and forth to Central State. I'm on probation. Nobody really knows I'm on probation, but I'm there trying to change my life around. But that's the first time God like really arrested me and made me understood that it was something on my life that I needed to start paying attention to. That's when I finally identified that I was. I always thought I knew everything. I mean, the prophetic was always there. I always knew different stuff. But now I don't got no phone. I don't got no money. It's crazy that the pastor that was going to he was over the campus ministry. I went to church the first time. And I used to like hate going to new churches because every time I go to a new church, the pastor always prophesies to Lamont. It never fails. He says, I don't know, it's something about you. You have this aura about you. God is calling you to do X, Y, Z. And guess what? This is what happens. And I'm like, oh Jesus, it's about to happen. So he brings me up. He said, something about you. He said, God says business is on your life, and I need to be your first investor. He reached in the offering plate and gave me $20. He didn't know that I had no money, but I had to get back to home for my first probation meeting. I used that $20 and I overdrafted my account to get back to Cleveland. For some reason, we kept having snowstorms. So I was able to go back to Finish Line and work for a week. So now every 2 weeks when I'm going back home, I'm able to tell my professors that I'll turn the work in later but then I'll go to work for like a week so I can be able to pay to get back and forth. Then after spring break, I had a $400 check. I worked my butt off the whole time I was at home for spring break. I had like a $400 or $500 check. You know how it is working minimum wage, but I had like a $400 or $500 check. And I decided to buy snapback hats from China. Like I bought them from China. They was like I shared on my Facebook all the time. I bought these snapback hats, and when I got them, I'm like they flew gazy. One of my friends like, man, you tripping? He said you better sell these hats. I used all my money to buy the hats, and so he put the hat on, go in the hallway, and they like Where you get that hat from? He said, my man, he got them. He in here selling them. So mind you, they all in my room. So they see like 20, 30 snapbacks. Everybody going crazy. Hey, how much you want? How much you want? That started my real life business endeavors. And then so now I said I was gonna go to school for business, go to school for finance. Right before everything went haywire, like everybody knew me for understanding business at the school. And it's crazy because all of this only happened me understanding finances, understanding that it was a gift for me to understand numbers and put things together, understanding how to make profits and understanding how not to lose money came from me, a traumatic experience. Going home, having to do all this different stuff. Now it's funny because now everybody, if they can't get somewhere, if they can't get an Uber, they act like they can't go. Like I'm walking places, getting on buses. I feel like I done lived in mostly every major city, and almost every major city I've lived in, I've had to ride the public transportation. It was like God bring me back to a moment to be like, yeah, remember when I gave you that, because I had an internship in college. Remember I gave you that internship when you was broke. Like I had a gambling problem one time in college. I went broke trying to gamble my whole refund check. Went broke. Trying to throw parties. Went broke because I was always trying to like make something happen to make myself bigger than what God wanted me to be at the time. And God would give me a sign. He'd tell me to stop. I don't do it. But one time God gave me an internship making $20 an hour. It was when I first started to change my life around. I had went to the Thurgood Marshall Leadership Institute, and for some reason I don't know how I ended up doing it. I was on the wrong path. I got back to selling weed again at college and doing all this stuff. And this girl that I had a crush on, she tells me to go to a career fair with her, and I'm like, I go, like, because the joke around the school was Lamont is smart, but he don't apply himself. And that's what the joke was in my classes, because as soon as I opened up my mouth, it was like, wait, we didn't expect that to come from you. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
asking questions outside of the box to the teachers. I'm correlating things that didn't matter. But I go to this career fair and I get in the car with, it's only one man. He like, the men gonna ride together. It was a joke. The men gonna ride together because I was the only guy who went. He like, what's your name? What's your GPA? I tell him my GPA at the time was like 3.8, 3.7, 3.8. He said, how come I don't know who you are? I'm like, I don't know. Like, knowing the reason why you don't know who I am is because I kick it with everybody else who don't got 3.8 at all. Like, they probably got 1.8, 2.8. Like, we kick it every day. Like, I do my work, but we kick it every day, like HBCU. And he like, do you want to go to New York for 5 days for free? He's like, this how he got me. He say, it's gonna be women from every black college in America. I'm like, yeah, I want to go. Like, yo, yeah. You gonna learn interview skills, professional development. But then when I got to this place, so fast forward, I get to this place. We in New York City. We gotta wear suits every day, like, and I'm just witnessing like this is a whole nother lifestyle that I knew nothing about. And I felt behind. It was my first time in my life I felt like literally behind. So now I'm lost. I'm thinking I got it. I got it going because my friends, a couple of my friends about to go to NFL. We all talking about how I'm gonna be a sports agent. When they introduced me, we go like I'm 19 years old kicking it around LeBron James and all these different people because we throw parties. And everybody like I was like, all right, I'm gonna be the sports agent. You gonna be this. You gonna be that. You gonna do this. But then when I finally get into this room, it's like, wait, you don't measure up with the people who about to do the
Mm.
stuff that you think you about to do in life. Like you meeting people who already got jobs at big four accounting firms. You already meeting people who they got stuff lined up. You don't got nothing lined up, and you about to graduate in less than a year. And it hit me. I'm like, yeah, I can't lose like this. And I literally I smoked weed before I left to New York, and I stopped smoking weed for like 3 years after that. I was like, I ain't doing nothing. I'm about to do what I'm supposed to do, and I decided to try to get on the right path, but I still had a gambling problem. I still had a problem with trying to always be fresh and all this different stuff and wasting money, had no sense of money. And it's kind of crazy because it all tied back into my purpose of helping people understand stewardship. But then I had an internship making $20 an hour. God saved me. He saved me. And I had met the people for Alpha Phi Alpha, and I'm like going through the process with them. And I found out I couldn't graduate. So now I'm really going through the process with them. 2 weeks before graduation, God tries to save me again. They call me, they say, you can graduate. I'm like, I don't want to graduate. I got an internship making $20 an hour, and I'm online, and I'm getting all my stuff together, and I didn't have none of this 6 months ago, so I'm coming back to school. Every day that summer, I'm waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I asked a close friend, my godfather, the pastor. I'm like, what are you working up at 3 o'clock in the morning? I keep waking up at 3:33. He said, God trying to get your attention. It's a decision you need to make that you got to make a decision. And I kid you not, once I made up my mind that I was going to finish through that process, it's like I'm not gonna say a demon took over me, but I lost all sense of control of what I was really supposed to be doing. And that's what drifted me into the realm of going city to city, lust and perversion, partying all the time, always trying to do something you have no business doing, always got my hand in something that maybe not legal at the time, I mean, maybe not illegal, but in the sense of things, it's scheming and finessing. God ain't in that. You trying to make money. You know how to make money quickly, but you always lose it. I'm back. I got 1 foot in, 1 foot out of corporate. I'm trying to start businesses, but nothing ever works. And it just was like always a position of I'm almost there, but something pulls me back. And that pulled me back was what was saving me. Because I'm just sitting here trying to make things happen. I was trusting in the Lord I was trusting in my own heart. I was trusting in my own way of doing things. And it was like, once God arrested me, I was put in a position where I had to be like, all right, nah, this can't happen like this no more. I gotta change my path. And then I went on a 40-day fast. Top of 2021, I went on a 40-day fast. I'm like, all right, God, if you call me to be a prophet or whatever, you got to get all this stuff out of my life. I gotta change. I need some wisdom. I need some direction because I don't know where I'm going. I'm listening to Miles Monroe all the time, and I'm like, I don't know nothing about what you talking about. Like, I don't know my purpose. I don't understand what I'm supposed to be doing in life. I just know how to get money, and every time I get a lot of money, I always lose it. So I need to figure out what's going on in my life. Like, I need to figure this out. So I went on 40-day fast, and coming off the 40-day fast, they say when you choose God, hell really breaks loose. Hell really broke loose. And a lot of stuff happened in my life through 2021 to now. My father had 3 brain surgeries, had to move back to Cleveland, switching different jobs, uh, just a lot of different things where it feel like a setback, but it's God really setting you up for the comeback.
Mm-hmm.
That you losing, but it's God really showing you lessons or saving you from things. Because to be honest with you, if I never would have got arrested, not like I say arrested, but God literally arrested me. He literally stopped me from doing everything I was doing. Like it was just crazy. And going on a 40-day fast, father getting all this different stuff, it was like this saved me. Because if it didn't, I would probably have a couple $1,000,000 in my pocket, headed in the wrong direction with the wrong people. I had started doing music and I was good at it because I did this my whole life. I have people in my family. Like we was just, I was just with my cousin the other day. One of my cousins wrote "Same Girl." You know the song of R. Kelly and Usher. He wrote "Same Girl," so I always had that in my back pocket. I'm like, all right, if I can't be a sports agent, I see I need to make some money. I can just get to writing songs or be a rapper or something. That didn't work out either. So it's like I'm trying to pursue all these different things that is not gonna get me nowhere. Coming out the 40-day fast, father getting into these situations, and now it's like you want to fall back into your vomit. Like you want to do different things, but now you know the consequences of your actions. You know how God works. You understand. So now you kind of like you not doing it, but you feel withdrawals because you like, I know how to get out of this position, out of this situation, but God, like, nope, you can't do it that way. You try to do it that way if you want to. I'm gonna show you what's gonna happen. So I have visions. It'll show you what I'm gonna show you what's gonna happen. So now you feel depressed because you like my hands tied behind my back because I can't do what I'm used to doing to get out of this situation or out of this circumstance or out of these emotions. I'm used to being able to do this when I feel like this, or I'm used to being able to do this when I feel like doing this. I'm used to be able to call her when I feel like this. I'm used to be able to just leave everything behind and take a trip for a week if I feel like this. But God, like, nope, I'm about to force you to trust in me with all your heart. And you're not going to be able to lean to your own understanding because if you do, you're going to fall off worse than you ever did.
Man, that's a powerful story that you just shared. Again, I have to start off by saying I appreciate your transparency in that. You covered so many different facets of it all, and to be honest with you, I mean, this is very relatable stuff that people deal with. Not understanding what to make of it all, but as you stated, all of this was necessary to build you, to get you to the point that you're at now and understanding your purpose. You literally had to go on this roller coaster ride that you took us on. And I'm glad that you went through the detail that you did because people need to understand that. Like I said, even, and I guess I love the fact too that even in the midst of the ups and downs, big swings like that, you never stop fighting through. You kept persevering. You kept saying, you know what, I'm not gonna give up. I'm not gonna wave the white flag on this one. And God was there all along, as you said. He gave you a little leeway and let you try it your way. But then, and I love you using that word arrested. He kept arresting you. You didn't go to jail because he had already arrested you. So you couldn't take him out of God's couldn't take you out of God's custody and put you in the worldly custody of a prison cell. God had already arrested you. That's why you were able to. Who gets pulled over by the police with drugs and paraphernalia with them, and you be able to walk away from it. Basically, yeah, you had to go to court and all that, but that was supposed to, according to worldly standards, that was supposed to end differently.
I
You
done
were
had
supposed to be done. It was supposed to be a wrap. You were supposed to be you were supposed to be locked up. It was supposed to be the end. School was supposed to be over. Everything was supposed to be over. That was supposed to be the beginning of a spiraling out of control of your life that you were never supposed to recover from, according to worldly terms. But when God is in the mix of it, when we know that God has the final say on that, he can take what's supposed to go left and he make it goes the right. He make it go the right way. And he'll use those trying times, those challenging times for your good, for your betterment. So you can be prepared, you can be equipped. And the other thing that I like what you said, which is so powerful as well, and I know Chris identifies with this as well, is when God takes hold of your life, a lot of times people confuse giving their lives to Christ as being, okay, I'm at the finish line, and now everything is gravy, but you said all hell about to break loose. That's exactly what happens because there's an enemy that's waiting to, of course, throw you off guard because he's not satisfied he's not happy with the fact that you've chosen this lifestyle. But then also, God is still having to test you more because now you're getting ready to level up. And as they say, the higher the level, the higher the devil. So I got to keep you battle tested. I got to keep you ready for what you're getting ready to walk into. So very, very powerful stuff. I appreciate you sharing that. And I do, of course, I want to give Chris an opportunity to share as well because I know he has a powerful story to tell. Please share with us, Chris. Take us back to that time when you were hit with something, didn't know how I was going to get through this thing. This was a little bit heavier than normal. I'm not sure. I was doubting, but you're here today to tell that story. What was that journey like for you?
Wow. So, I mean, I think just like you, is Lamont, right?
yes, sir.
Okay. Similar. I mean, it's really interesting as I was listening to you share, man. There were so many of those commonalities as you were referring to, Joseph, man, that you see why God aligned us to be on the same podcast episode, man. So, I would say there are a number of different, moments. I can think of two big ones that I'll share, and I'm gonna try to be brief. I don't know how much time we have on here, but I'll try to be
You're
brief.
good.
Okay. So I would say first was when I became a father, right? College ball. brand new, big school, the big environment. You go from high school to a major university. And so, it was really impactful, and it was kind of jarring for me because I didn't have the guidance of like a dad to say, "Hey, man, here's how you navigate these spaces." Went through the recruiting process, man. It was eye opening, mind blowing, kind of bewildering to some degree because they throw everything and the kitchen sink at you to get you to come to their school. And I just kind of chose, what was close, where a couple of my teammates were going, all my high school friends were going. I said, everybody else going there, I'm gonna go there. It was still in a major conference, so at least I can, play and get on TV. But the environment, was eye opening. And there were a lot of things that I was just not prepared for. And like I said, a lot of what I do now is centered in the faith and mental health. Is Jesus and therapy, right? And so I was just not emotionally aware. I didn't have the kind of emotional intelligence that I do now. So a lot of it still was developed then. And so just understanding what men do and just understanding what's the difference between men and women and just the dynamics of our emotions, right? So, in that day and time, man, you're talking mid '90s, man. It was suck it up and walk it off. You didn't express hurt, pain, fear. You didn't let it be known that you didn't have the answers to a particular challenge or problem. You just toughed it out. You, like they say, you fake it till you make it. And so a lot of what I learned at that age was just trying to figure things out. Now, one of the things I left out of the earlier part of my story in terms of just as a child, some of my backstory, I used to stutter a lot.
Mm.
It was pretty tough. And there were some people who've had it much worse than I did. I didn't have to go to a speech therapist, but I definitely, it was definitely a stuttering challenge there. And so a lot of my early years in education from that standpoint, I spent quiet. I was extremely quiet because I was afraid of making a mistake in front of all the kids, right? Because kids can be mean. you
Mm-hmm.
know, you didn't want nobody calling your names and making fun of you, and so I spent a lot of that time quiet, questioning myself. Right, I was a relatively intelligent individual, um, you know, and but just unsure. So when I look at like biblical characters, I related a lot to Moses, who had a stuttering problem. God was calling him major things that he had on his life that he wanted him to do, but he was unsure of himself and his ability to do the thing that God was calling him to do. And so as I was sharing that, I had to make the decision to stop playing ball. My head coach at the time, he and I had a really, really deep conversation. His name was Cam Cameron. He came from the Washington Redskins at the time. He had a really storied career from college and actually ended up coaching the Miami Dolphins for a year, which is crazy. But great guy, Christian, called me in his office one time. Of course, head coach doesn't call you in office. So your position coaches talk to you a lot, but your head coach usually don't do that. So when the head coach calls you and say, "Hey man, what you doing? Come on down. I want to catch up with you." And I was like, "Oh Lord," I'm going through my mind. Well, what have I done? Did I go to class? All the classes I did. I turn on my stuff. Did I participate? So I'm going through. I'm like, "No, I did everything I was supposed to do." And so we had a really good conversation, but the conversation centered around football being temporary, but family being forever. Again, like I said, I was a young dad. My father was gone the majority of my younger years, so I had no clue what I was supposed to be doing. I had no understanding of what I was supposed to be giving this young boy, and was afraid of making a mistake. The one thing I wanted to do was make sure that he didn't have the same challenge that I did in terms of just not having dad there to kind of help guide him and give him answers. But that was a challenging season. So I'm trying to do some major things in my life, pursue my dream. But then I have this teachable, experience in terms of God doing very much the same thing with me as He did with Lamont in terms of just saving me.
Mm-hmm.
Because prior to my son, being born, I was headed down the typical college athlete's path. I wasn't wilding out, but it was getting ready to jump off, right? And so I tell my son, all the time. I was like, man, the Lord used you to save me, to redirect me, to recalibrate my life. So you were a blessing when I needed it most and didn't know I needed it.
And Chris, I'm sorry to interrupt you real quick, but wanted to point out, if I recall correctly, when you were a dad, this first go around as a dad, you were actually doing this as a single dad,
Single
if I'm
dad.
correct.
Mm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So single dad, playing college ball, going to school. I was actually, my job at the time was I was a peer instructor. So I was teaching. You're right, man. See, what's interesting, what's even more interesting. So again, there's these pieces to kind of give you context to my story. What was, um, very quiet, very introverted, uh, get to this major, space where, it's a lot going on, and having to be more vocal, right? So still like learning who I am and trying to get confidence in what my abilities were, my physical abilities, that part was easy. It's just, play ball, hurt people, be aggressive, what I mean, it all works. But starting to communicate and build relationships, I just didn't have much context for that. So, first girlfriend, I was a virgin when I got to school.
Mm.
Okay. So I went from virgin to dad all in the same year,
Mm.
which is a heck of a transition, right? And so there's a lot happening, 18, 19, 20, a lot happening in that space. But when he was born, his mom really, was not really feeling being a mom in college, right? And so, she had gotten my girlfriend had gotten pregnant, um, and we ended up getting an abortion with the first child. You know, scared half to death, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm having sex. I have no clue. You hear the stuff in health and sex ed and all that, but when you get in real life situations, man, there is wisdom on how to handle yourself in that space. Well, I ain't had none of that. It was just like, oh, it's about to go down, then it goes down. You know what I mean? Oh, this
Hmm.
will, then my emotions get all wound up and your feelings, and you know what I mean. So I think I love her, and oh yeah, we're gonna be together for the rest of our lives, and blah blah blah. She gets pregnant. We both, 18 years old, just like stressed out of our minds, and so we go that route. And I was devastated. I was devastated, and nobody, they didn't prepare me for the emotion. A lot of times people talk about abortion and how it impacts the mom. We don't want to talk about how it impacts the dad, right? And
Hmm.
so when she got back in the car after we went to Planned Parenthood, and again, I'm a believer, but I'm young. I'm just living life, right? Um, and she said that the stage was at the stage where the fingers and toes are developed, and she went through all the different things they told her. And I just, man, it's like my heart dropped through the bottom of the car, man. It was like, wow. And it impacted me in a significant way. And I told myself, I'll never let that happen again. Right. And so when she got pregnant the second time, it was like, yeah, I don't care what happens. We ain't doing that. Right. And then when she decided, she was like, man, I just really, I want to be in college and kind of enjoy college. I was like, well, uh, you know, he's just going to be with me, because one thing he's not going to ever have to worry about is where's my dad, right? Because I had been through that, right? So, again, God orchestrating, recalibrating life, using these teachable moments to in a way to be reference points for what would later be ministry. And so that was a major season in my life, right? So fast forward a whole bunch of years, I'm a single dad. He's getting older. I'm learning, a la carte, what a good man is and what do godly men do. Still making mistakes as a young parent, during his early years, like he was in kindergarten. I was an elementary school teacher at the time, right? So I'm developing, I'm discerning God's call on my life. I'm understanding that I have a teaching gift. I don't know why I'm drawn to education, but it was unavoidable for me. I started as a computer science major and ended up in education, ended up an elementary school teacher, right? Go figure. And so, did that for a while, and it was like that classroom, engaging families and engaging young people, just like you said, Lamont. God was arresting me. He helped me to discover, like, okay, hey, I want you to be pouring into this younger generation, using all those experiences that I had to help give them some guidance, the guidance I wish somebody gave me. And really, my life has always been about that ever since. But that was a teachable moment. That was one of those, I don't know what the heck I'm going to do, and trying to figure it out. You know, like a person groping for the light switch in the dark. You know, I'm bumping into stuff, right? But I finally found the light switch, and really I became, you know, at that point, you know, being in college, being a single parent, really dove into just my relationship with the Lord, because I was like, you know what, I need to know more about God so I can teach my son about God. There's two things. I didn't want my son to be the bad kid in class, so I wanted to teach him, you know, the things that he needed to know to be the kind of young man that I wanted him to be, but I wanted him to know God, and so I had to learn more so I could teach him. You know, so it's like, you know, you grow up in church, you grow up in an environment, and you hear it, but it's one thing to hear it, another thing to teach it. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's really what kind of began that process. And like I said before, I was being discipled at the time and receiving some guidance, and so really God was helping me with that. And then of course, some years later, I meet you, Joseph, and we, you know, we at Eastern Star, man, we praying and doing the things that we need to do to kind of really calibrate our lives and align them with, you know, what God is trying to have us do. So, man, really, you know, that was just my opening, you know, just diving into ministry, right? And so I was serving everywhere, brother. I was serving in the prayer ministry, the evangelism ministry. I was in youth ministry. I was teaching and serving everywhere, you know. But I just really wanted to be about that business, and I wanted to have my son right there by my side, seeing all this, so that he could better understand. Okay, you know, this is instinctive. This is second nature. This is just what we do, right? So fast forward, my son is he's still in elementary school at this time. I moved to Texas by that time. Got married young, about 24, 25. And again, this is again, you know, as I said before, me being very intentional about pouring into men and young men. This is another one of those pieces where it heightened the need and my passion for it. Married young, had no real understanding, no real guidance in terms of just what a healthy marriage looked like. And so quite honestly, that my marriage was an abusive one, very abusive. Now, I didn't really realize the level and the degree of abuse because, again, I'm a former football player. So if somebody hits you, I mean, you know, I ran into other human beings at full speed for fun. So, you know, I was married to a 5'1", you know, 100-something pound woman. I mean, if she punches me in the arm, I'm like, girl, get on out, you know, go on somewhere, right? Didn't really understand that's abuse, right? If I hit on her like she hit on me, that would be abuse. I'd be under the jail, right? And so it was extremely abusive, physically, verbally, emotionally, mentally. And so transition to Texas. The Lord brought me to Texas. I know He wanted me to be here, but He used that as an opportunity to do that. Brought me here. You know, was in ministry. You know, was at a great church, learning, growing spiritually, but going home to an abusive household. Trying to be a head, trying to be a husband, trying to be a good man, but not understanding how to navigate toxicity and trauma and abuse, not really understanding like this ain't, you know, this ain't what it's supposed to look like. You know what I mean? We're supposed to be a little different. You know what I mean? This relationship is supposed, marriage is supposed to look different. Everybody telling me it's supposed to be different. Why is it like this? Right. And so, you know, it was just years and years of abuse. Um, and so, man, you know, we were married for probably at this point, maybe about 5.5 years. And it got to the point where the abuse was starting to affect. She brought you know, she had a son and I had a son coming into the marriage, and it's starting to affect the kids. They were in elementary school, straight A students. Now they're making B's and C's and D's and F's because they can't escape the toxicity. You know what I mean? And so I remember being at a marriage conference at a major church in Dallas, and just, you know, needing somebody to talk to. We had been to counseling 2 or 3 times, and they were just like, "Hey, you know, we need to continue couples counseling, but I think we need to spend some time with you." In terms of her, like we need to walk through some stuff. There was some trauma she had brought into the marriage, and so been to 3 different times, and they kind of all came to the same conclusion. Like, we need to do some work over here. There's some reasons why you're lashing out like this, but I'm young. I don't know anything about this. You know, there was no space for men to talk about feelings and I don't know what to do, and here's what's happening at home, and I'm being cussed out every day, or my wife is throwing stuff at me, or she's hitting and scratching, and all that, man. It was just, there was no place for men to talk about that stuff. And so when I started to see the kids showing signs of it, I said, okay, we got it. Something's got to change. So I was at this marriage conference. They separated the men and the women. Was in with a bunch of some seasoned men, who've been married 15 plus years, most of them, 20, 30 years. And I'm in a room full of men, major church. And so a lot of men in this room. And I just said, I'm at my wit's end. So I said, listen, here's my situation. I don't know what to do, but I need some help. And they shared with me, the dynamics of abuse and what to do about it. And they were like, listen, brother, I ain't telling you get a divorce, but I am telling you get out the house. Um, because obviously, we're not advocating for divorce, but it's like you guys need to get some help. And if it's getting to the point where it's so abusive that you're feeling, like you're going to retaliate, you need to leave, because the reality is, and unfortunately, it's not the same for men and women when it comes to abuse, right? That somebody calls the police, they're going to come, even if you have been abused for years. They're going to look at how big you are and how small she is, and you're going to jail. And that's what they told me. They said, man, listen, and it'll ruin your ministry if you get this on your record. This thing follows you like a tattoo. And so I ended up leaving. I moved to Houston. And I was trying to still continue to work on, trying to repair the damage, and the toxic marriage, and ended up getting divorced. And I said, hey, I don't want to do this. She ended up filing because I was like, hey, man, I got to get a change. I remember the day that I decided to leave. Um, we were had these arguments that really started by something trivial. And I remember she smacked me. I mean, she reached back in the last week and smacked me hard. And I remember I told her in the very beginning of the marriage, I said, listen, if there ever comes a time, now here's what's sad about what I'm getting ready to say, but it's going to be very telling. I said, if I ever feel like I'm going to hit you back, I'm going to leave. Now, in hindsight, the fact that I'm processing that there's that much abuse happening before you get married or in the beginning of your marriage should tell you, the condition. But again, I'm young. There's no context. I don't have anything to compare it to. And so I remember that day she smacked me, man. I stood up and my fist was balled up and I recognized it. And I looked at her and I said, you know what? I got to go. I got to go. Um, and I left. And eventually, she filed for divorce, and it was challenging because I grew up, God hates divorce, but something had to change, and I realized, like, I had lived in Houston. I moved to Houston, man. I would live there for about 6 months. It was just kind of healing, right? And went to the doctor one time, and they told me, they said, hey, we did some blood work and found this particular enzyme in your blood that suggests that you had a heart incident.
Mm.
And they said, depending on the amount of the enzyme in your blood, they can kind of pinpoint, what happened. They said, did you have some major event about 6 months ago? I said, yeah, yeah. They said, so basically you had a heart event, which could be a minor heart attack or something of the like. And so literally, I remember hearing this scripture. It was basically that, a quarrelsome wife is like decay in your bones. And I remember feeling that thing like, man, I feel like I'm dying in this marriage, right? Not understanding the impact of trauma and the impact of the trauma of, that kind of the abusive experience. And so those two major moments in my life, man, were significant, but it also, the scripture says that God uses or works in all things and works them for your good, according, those who love him and are called according to his purpose. And so God used those things to sensitize me to other men who need a space to talk through their stuff and to be able, because I had sons biologically, and so I was like, I got to be able to teach my sons how to talk about their feelings,
Mm.
and then to create a space where it's okay to be vulnerable, to be transparent, to be authentic. It's okay to feel, right, and not this trick bag of be hard and protect and suck it up, because a lot of men are committing suicide because of it. And so it really was God using all these experiences, becoming a dad, a single dad early in my life, and then going through an abusive marriage, which I didn't even think was possible for men. I thought, the culture would tell you abusive marriage, the man hit the woman, right?
Hmm.
It's not always the case. And unfortunately, I have a younger brother who is recently divorced, who went through the same thing. And so what that tells me is that we didn't have something that we needed to help us understand what we are supposed to be looking for in terms of how we should be treated, what kind of treatment we deserve, and then what kind of environment is healthy. And so, from that standpoint, those two major moments, those two, challenging experiences, among others, were very shaping in terms of just my focus in ministry today.
Wow, my brother, that again, a powerful story, and I have to just as with in Lamont's case, I have to start off by saying I appreciate your transparency, your vulnerability, and sharing that. And I like the fact that you put out there the fact that men, the importance, I should say, of men having that space to be vulnerable, and how challenging it is when a man is going through things and he doesn't have anybody to speak to, or he's grown up in a way to be made to feel that when you speak about things like you shared, that it doesn't mean that you're a weak man, or you're a punk, or or anything of that like. But unfortunately, our upbringing, and worldly standards has made men to feel that way, and they're hurting inside. And so, for any of the men who have an opportunity to see this podcast, I want to reinstate and reinforce, I should say, the fact that if you don't have somebody in your life that you can pour out to like that about those vulnerable moments, I would definitely encourage you to get that, whether it's a mentor, whether it's another brother who you can confide in, or even if need be, if it needs to be a therapist, because we have to get out of that as well into thinking that seeking therapy is a taboo thing, or it's a sign of weakness. You need to have a space and a place to pour out in, because when you don't, you're not only killing yourself on the inside, but then you put yourself in a position to where eventually all of that pain and that anguish and that hurt, it has to come out. And what you don't want to have it happen, of course, is you don't want it to come out lashing out against someone, whether it be a spouse or children or other situations that you can cause situations and put yourself in positions that you can't reverse. You can't get that back. Like those men spoke to you and said, you'll kill your ministry. And I love the fact that their advisement wasn't get divorced, but it was, you need to step away from that situation.
Yeah.
You need to, you need to step aside before, don't even allow yourself to blow up, so to speak. And then, again, do something that you regret. So I appreciate, man, that transparency and just the journey. And for you to be still here today to even tell that story for both of you again. And, it goes back to God being in your lives, being present, covering you accordingly, even during those challenging moments in life, not letting you go arrest. That's been our word for today. Arresting you, keeping you locked down to make sure that things don't get so far out of line to where your challenges, your valley experiences of life are not allowed to consume you. You're still able to walk through it, because neither of you, as we're sitting here today, neither of you look like what you shared that you've been through. You're not supposed to look like clean cut brothers who got it together. People wouldn't even know just looking at you what you shared tonight. And that speaks a testament to who God is and his anointing on both of your respective lives. So with that said, I want to ask each of you real quick, when you do find yourself going through challenging moments, adverse moments, what is sort of your thing that you like to go through? If you can kind of sum that up briefly for me. I'll start back with you, Lamont. Tell me, what do you like to do that kind of helps you process going through difficult moments? What is your go-to routine, if you will?
I mean, now it's always changing now. To be honest with you, because I'm gonna say I've been walking with God technically, like literally, intentionally for the past almost 4 years now.
Hmm.
So each year has been different. Like the first year, I was I was intentional, but I still was one foot in, one foot out. So the way I dealt with conflict was still kind of sort of running back to my vomit, but understanding like it was wrong.
Hmm.
Then the next year, it was kind of like just hoping for something better. Always staying in prayer, always staying in a meditative state, always understanding that things is gonna get better. Then after that, it was kind of like things gonna get better. That faith you still gotta have it, but it might not happen now. So then once you get to that point where you like it might not happen now, you start to like regret understanding the way you do. Because now you want to run back to your vomit, but you understand like, nah, I bet not do that. I can't do that. You might even think about it from a standpoint, like you said, brother. You was like, can't mess up my reputation. Like I can't have these. I know that if I go through this, then I'm not gonna be able to make it through that fire mentally. Now it's coming to the point where it's like I gotta, I might have to stop doing everything I'm doing and just chill out. Like I gotta just like, I might just sit there and just fall into a meditative state. Might like I just need to allow God to speak to me through a meditative state so I can be able to really process what's going on. It's kind of like really having faith. Like everybody talk about faith till it's really time to have it. And having faith ain't
Hmm.
always making it through a situation or a circumstance. Sometimes having that faith is believing that God is going to work on the other individual or the other situation because he has to, because no good thing will he withhold to them who walk upright. You got to really understand that no promise will return to you void. But that don't mean that the situation is going to change immediately. It might get worse. But now I'm coming to the point of understanding that like he'll never leave me nor forsake me, no matter what I think. Like he not gonna allow me to run back to nobody and say that he lied, because he's not a man that he should lie. He's not the son of man he shall repent. So now I'm getting to the point of really trusting him. I used to would
Hmm.
probably maybe run and always try to call somebody, but you some things you not you they it's not gonna make it better. You gonna talk about it, or you might gossip about it, or you might say some stuff that hinder you more because we don't really understand watching spirits. We don't understand that sometimes we can say something to somebody that we wasn't supposed to say. Now the enemy understands something that he was not supposed to understand or know about you. Now he gonna attack you in a completely different way. So now that you understand this from a spiritual standpoint, you like, it's better for me to just shut up. It's better for me to just allow God to do what he gonna do. So now I get to the point to where it's like, God, I don't understand. I just pray that you give me some type of understanding. And without fail, something ends up happening, a situation or a circumstance where God reveals himself. A preacher told me one time that God is never known. In the Bible, God is never known. You never see God, but he always revealed himself. And that sat with me because then I started to pay attention to all the different things that was happening in my life at that time. It was like God always revealed where he was at in the situation. And then it's like if you would have understood that while you was going through it, you wouldn't be going through this right now because you
Hmm.
wanted to jump to this. And since you wanted to jump to this, now I have to do this. And then now it's like, just throw your hands up. It's like, all right, God, I know you got the best for me. I don't understand what's going on right now. I don't like it. I actually hate what I'm going through right now. But I know you're gonna help me make it out.
There it is right there. And I love the fact that as I was asking you what your routine was, that I loved how you started off by saying it's changed, and that speaks to spiritual growth, because how I used to handle adversity 20 years ago shouldn't be the same how I handled it 10 years ago, shouldn't be the same how I handled it 5 years ago. There should be an elevated change, and that elevated change should transition, as in your case, to the point to where now you say, I don't understand it, and that's okay, but I understand you. I know who you are. I know what you represent. So you know what? I'm just going to sit back. I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to put my hands up, and I'm going to allow you to reveal to me at your space, at your pace, at your rhythm, at your flow, what I need to know so I know how to move forward. And that speaks to the growth of your process when we talk about how you handle adversity. That's beautiful that you shared that. Same question for you, Chris. What is this like for you when you're facing adversity and challenging times? What do you like to do that kind of helps you to stay grounded, but at the same time be able to work through whatever it is that you're up against?
Yeah, I think it's probably a multi-tiered process, honestly. So at this stage, in my walk with the Lord, it's kind of more like, there are certain stages where you're being fed more, and then there are stages where you become the chef, right? You're the teacher, and so, when I'm going through and working through challenges, my relationship with the Lord has changed over the years. My prayer life has changed. They say, you have pray without ceasing.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, they're not saying you always pray and you never like engage or talk to people. What they really kind of digging into is being consistent with prayer, but always having a heart toward prayer, conversing with the Lord all the time, all day, even when it seems like seemingly insignificant things. Talk to him about it. Right, the Holy Spirit is there to give us guidance. He's always present. There's a reason why he's there. He's like, man, here's a resource, use it. And so a lot of what I do is just have those consistent conversations with the Lord, and allow him to kind of give me guidance through it. Really trying to, at this stage of my life, see beyond the surface, right? So, okay, Lord, here's how this thing is impacting me. Why is it impacting me this way, right? Again, because a lot of the work that I do now is a hybrid of just ministry, really kind of taking in and really utilizing and applying biblical principles, but also some of the mental health dynamics, right? So, okay, let me ask myself some of these questions, and really kind of get to the heart of and the root of what I'm navigating. Why do I feel this way? Oh, this is stemming from a particular experience I may have had long ago. Okay, so that's why it's triggering me. Okay, let me just navigate that. Or, God created us for community. He didn't create us to be lone rangers, right? And so, part of what I've done and what God was having me to do with our organization, Lionheart, is create a group of men. We kind of our conversation space is called Man Cave, right? And so what we do is we get men together and we just talk. Where we talk about our stuff. If it's sometimes it's something you can't tell your wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you can't, and we talk. We have an opportunity to just be transparent, take the armor off, right, and then talk through, work through our wounds, right, and then receive. The Bible says there's wisdom in a multitude of counsel, so we receive wisdom and insight from other brothers. There's a reason why there's a collective, that there's a body of Christ, right? And so there's things that we get from one another, and so there are reasons why we're in one another's lives. And so what I try to share with the brothers, and they walk it out, is that I've already paid the cost for the lessons I've learned. There's no need
Mm-hmm.
for you to as well, and them the same. They've already paid the cost for theirs. I mean, listen, if you paid it, let me benefit. Let me be a beneficiary of the cost you paid to learn the lesson you learned. And so that's another one. Just you have somebody to talk to, like you said earlier. And one of the things I try to share with men on a regular basis: listen, don't hold it in, don't suck it up and walk it off. Find some healthy individuals to connect with, to share, right? And sometimes, again, you gotta have, even when in a healthy marriage, there are some dynamics of just you being a man, you being a head, you being a husband or father, that you need to talk to other healthy men about,
Mm-hmm.
right? so you can bring back a healthier you to your household, right? And so we try to walk that out. So that's one of the tools that I use. Also, with our organization, one of the things we do, among other things, is we create custom apparel, right? And so I like to get my hands in, like the design process, and just kind of bringing a vision to life. And so for me, sometimes it's just the work of my hands, right? And just being able to see something to fruition. So it's like, okay, let me work on this. Or you know how like there are message tees, like the T-shirt that the Lamont has on, man. So like I'll have a bright idea of something, and so I'll just put it on the shirt. Right? There are multiple processes that we use, but it allows me to just work with my hands. Men are generally functional, and so oftentimes there is therapy, right? It's therapeutic to
Hmm.
work at something and then to have a product, a finished product. I can kind of get in the lab, bruh, and kind of design away. And then, next thing I know, I don't even remember what it was that I was upset about or that
Hmm.
had rubbed me the wrong way or something somebody said that kind of jabbed at me, you know what I mean? To be able to kind of, navigate past it. And so, whether it's just, praying, spending some time with the Lord, or the community of brothers that you surround yourself with, or just putting myself to work, just kind of digging into something to kind of take my mind off those things, are kind of the ways that I usually navigate.
Love that. Love that. I love the diversity in that. The community, the prayer, the creativity moment. All of those things are blended in together to just kind of help you release and process through challenging and difficult times. So, Lamont, if you could sum up in one word, if you're think back to your younger self. If you had an opportunity to talk to that younger brother who was lost in his ways, trying to figure it all out. Somebody even might be listening to the podcast that identifies with the stories that you shared today about being in that lost state of mind. If you could sum up in one word what that young brother, that young version of you focus should be on, what would you sum that up to be? What would be that one word? Did you say lean into this? What would that be?
Patience.
Patience. I love that. Patience. Especially in the world today where we live in a microwave society. We want everything to happen right now, right quick, right fast. No thinking about it, no pondering on it, no meditating on it, no prayer on it. We just want it to happen. You hit it right on. You spot on with that patience. Same question for you, Chris. You talking to the younger Chris. You're talking to brothers who are like the younger Chris. What's that one word that you say? Lean into this, and this will help you understand life and understand how to process getting through these journeys and challenges that you're going to be dealing with as you move along that path.
Yeah. So echo chamber, 100%. Patience,
Patience.
absolutely patience.
All right. Well, you heard it. You heard it here first. These brothers said patience. You heard it double time. Patience. Patience. Patience is everything. Wait on the Lord. Patience.
Yeah.
Be open. Be quiet. Be silent. Sit back. Wait. Let it be revealed to you. Quit trying to do it on your own. Quit trying to carry that weight by yourself. Quit trying to rush the process. You got time. Wait on the Lord. Be patient. I love it. I love it. Brothers, it has been a pleasure having you. Before I let you go, though, I want to give each of you an opportunity to share. If you got any projects going on, anything that you're working with, anything that like, we want to love on you, celebrate you, affirm you. I'm going to jump back to you, Lamont. We know you got the podcast. Tell people a little bit about your podcast and anything else you got going on that you'd like to share that people need to know about.
Okay. Well, I got godismysource.com. It's a platform that helps individuals identify who God is and how to trust Him with all their heart and not lean toward their own understanding. God has really been sitting with me and directing me in a different way with God as my source. Now I know we have a podcast, we have apparel, like Chris was talking about earlier. We got apparel. I wrote a book, but now I'm starting to see that people need a practical sense of how to follow God. It's not just this is my identity anymore. You have to understand like who he is, how he moves, and how I should move too as well. And if you don't understand that, you will find yourself lost or you will find yourself very bitter because God is not going to move the way you think he wants you to move. He's not you want him to move. If you move in the way that you're not supposed to move, you're going to start to see yourself drifting away. And a lot of people I've seen drifted away from the faith because they didn't understand how to truly wait on God. He say, they that wait on the Lord, he shall renew your strength. Renewing your strength might not mean that you get out of your situation. Renewing your strength might not mean that your circumstance gonna change. So now we starting to uh do different things. I took a break from the podcast, stopped at episode 55. It was God giving me some grace because he was showing me that I was seeking pleasing him with the platform versus seeking him to direct me on how to level the platform, how what playing field that the people that hear my voice what they need to hear versus okay, yeah, we have success stories, yeah, we have people that made it through different things, but a lot of people have the problem where they believe that God can do things, but they don't believe necessarily he'll do it for them because like they never seen it, they never had to walk through that door. So now we're just sitting back, allowing God to work on me, take me through different doors, so that when it's time to assist His people to get through that exodus moment, they can really transition and have power doing it, not just doing it to this is my identity or I love God or I go to church. Like that's cool, but when those demons come knocking at your door, like what do you resort to? Where do you resort to? Like, where do you go? Like, do you jump back to your vomit? Do you go to anger? Do you forget about who God is? Do you blame people for your situation? Are you accountable for what's going on? But if we're not practical in identifying who God is, we'll always be in a situation where we just talking about, oh, I'm saved, I'm a Christian, but do you walk upright? Do you walk in obedience? Do you understand what obedience truly is? Do you know that when he says obedience is better than sacrifice in the Old Testament, it translates to obedience is better than repenting for the things that you did based on your emotions? Do you know how to control your emotions? Do you have emotional intelligence? But if we
Mm-hmm.
don't understand that,
Love that.
no
Love that.
one's doing it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we of course we celebrate, we acknowledge, we congratulate, we affirm everything that you're doing. God's hands that He has on you and your works, Lord. On my brother Lamont, and I just pray that the Lord will continue to do that for you and guide you accordingly. And you even spoke to me as you talked about your podcast, and whether you realize or not, you dropped a little nugget for me to keep in mind as I'm building my platform, not making sure that I'm staying in tune with what the purpose of this all is, and not losing steps in terms of my role as well as the podcast role, and separating the two and understanding all the little intricacies and whatnots that goes along with that. So thank you for sharing that. Same for you, Chris. Tell us, man, you got any exciting projects going on? Anything in the works we need to know about that you want to tell us about? We can celebrate you, my brother.
I mean, honestly, anybody who knows me knows I got a bunch of irons in the fire. I got a few things I'm working on, man. But top of the list, man. Like I said, my wife and I started created this organization, Lionheart, and we chose, it actually was a something I started a men's group back in Indiana, quite honestly, and it blew up. It was just incredible in terms of just what God was doing with that. And so fast forward, the Lord was like, "Yeah, we need to take this thing beyond just men and spread it out." So Lionheart actually is kind of an umbrella, but we also serve women as well with Lioness, and just teaching and walking with men and women, young men and young women, just pouring and investing just the love of God and just guidance in that space. And so, one of the things that most people don't know is that in Scripture, God associates Himself with two animals, the eagle and the lion. And so, the lion we felt like best represented what God would have us do in terms of how we need to tenaciously go after the things that He would have us to do. So the expanding of that, we're launching some programs in Louisiana currently, looking at some other states that we're going to be launching in. I'm finishing a book called "Boys Are Not Born Broken," and so there's a lot in there. The title kind of gives you some insight in terms of
Mm-hmm.
what we're trying to communicate there. Very necessary message. Partnered with a good friend of mine on some things, Dr. Jay Barnett, a critical, heavy voice in the space of mental health, especially as it relates to men. And there's some incredible things that he's doing, man. But we're collaborating on some things. Um, but I think most of what we're trying to do is really, from a ministry standpoint, take ministry from outside of the four walls of the church and bring it to the people. One of the things most of us know about Jesus is that he spent very little time in the synagogue. He spent most of his time out with people, and oftentimes in marginalized groups. The leper colony was located outside the walls of the city. He would go outside. And so a lot of what we do is try to take the heart of the love of God and bring it to people and package it in ways that is digestible to where they are at that space. And so those are some of the things we're doing, man. Those are top of the list, and what we're trying to do in this season.
That's awesome, man. And if people want to connect with you and whether it's to contribute or find out more about your project, where would they do that at?
Yeah, so of course we have we're on Instagram, the Lionheart. So it's underscore the Lionheart, the number one underscore. So they can find us there. If they want to contribute, they want to donate. We have we can do Cash App. Most people using Cash App. Zelle, Cash App is the dollar sign, the Lionheart number one. If you just want to give and bless us as we do this work. You know, my email address is Chris at the Lionheart, all one word, .us, and they can get more information about a lot of the things we're doing. I couldn't even scratch the surface on all that we're doing, but just connect with us. Pray for us, and that way we can connect and do some good work for the kingdom.
Absolutely. Congratulations to you. We celebrate you. We affirm you. We loving what you're doing. And again, praying God's covering on you and your wife and the works that you all are doing as well. So you heard it here, people. We got Mr. Chris Davis with Lionheart. We got my brother Lamont Durr doing his God is my source. These brothers are doing some things, some powerful things about advancing the kingdom of God. Men, you need to connect with these brothers. Follow them. Check them out. These are perfect examples of what we were talking about that community and connecting with brothers. They don't have to be in the same city, same state as you are. That's one of the beauties about social media. We can connect in a lot of different ways, but more importantly, you want to connect in healthy and positive ways. And these two brothers are just prime examples of what that looks like. And they're willing and making themselves open to making those communications and those connects. So take advantage of it as much as you can. And if you've enjoyed the content that has been on our show today, I again encourage you to subscribe, share, like, comment, share this with. I plead with our audience, share this with the brothers. I mean, I want everybody to check it out, but brothers really need to be checking out this episode. We don't have moments like this very often, whether it be in podcast format or in other formats. So when chances like this come up where you're talking to men of God, being vulnerable, being transparent, sharing what they've been going through, the challenges in life, their experiences and the works that they're trying to do. We want to embrace that. We want to digest it. We want to get every piece of that we can. So my brothers, I appreciate you so much for taking time out to be with me this evening. It has been a pleasure having you. We could easily go on for hours and hours talking because there's just so much to say. And you brothers, of course, I think it goes without saying, you got to definitely have an open invite to come back. We can delve into some other subjects as well, because again, there's so much more to build on, so much more to talk about, So again, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate the conversation and the fellowship. It has been a pleasure having you. And for my viewers, just remember, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and where your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time, God bless. Take care of yourself. Keep fighting that good fight, and keep tuning in for more stories about empowering and encouraging and inspiring moments, ways to work through those challenging valley experiences of life. You can do it. God is with you. You don't have to do this journey alone. He is there for us. And the word today has been patience. And the word has been allow him to arrest you. Go into custody with him. I promise you it'll be the best decision you ever made. Take care of yourselves.